In 1933, the government got themselves into trouble and they owed a lot of gold. And so what'd they do? Article 6102, they declared a bank holiday. All the banks shut down for a week. No one could get their money out of the bank. When the banks opened back up, gold's illegal. You're not allowed to own it, and you can't get your gold out of the bank. Don't worry, though. We're going to give you your $20 per ounce. Here you go. These debt instruments. We're going to give them to you, but they're not redeemable for gold anymore. And by the way, it's not $20 per ounce anymore. Now it's $35 per ounce. So you just lost 60% of your wealth instantly.
Oh my God.
So we know that we can't trust them because they fail over and over and over. Then now gold is $35 per ounce. So that continued on to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. By we get to the 50s and the 60s, all these nations around the world are like, wait a minute, what is going on? You're printing way too many dollars. We don't want these paper certificates. We want the gold. So they start collecting their gold from the U.S. France sends their warships over to the U.S. to collect the gold. And President Richard Nixon in 1971 said, nope, we default on our obligations. We will not pay out the gold. The gold window is closed and the dollar is no longer pegged to gold. Now, this was a really big deal because in 1944, under what's called the Bretton Woods Agreement, the entire world agreed collectively that the dollar would be pegged to gold and all the currencies would be pegged to the dollar. But the U.S. lied the whole time. They printed too many dollars. And when that severed, not did just dollar get disconnected from gold, all currencies did. So we're 52 years or now 53 years into this fiat money experiment that the world has never seen before.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. They're getting ready to crash this thing, man.
Hey, if I cut off oil, and these countries no longer have access to US dollars, they're forced to spend whatever resources they have on protecting themselves, okay? And then guess what happens? The stock market collapses. The stock market collapses. The stock market is the real growth engine of the US economy. The entire US economy collapses with it.
Here's how the Iran war is going to crash the U.S. stock market and our economy. Because, well, I'm going to let this Professor Huang, is that how you say his name, Zhang? Here, he's got it worked out for us. Because all of our stock market is heavily dependent on investment from the Gulf states, the Gulf countries. And he's saying they're not going to be investing anymore. Well, here, watch.
Again, the key is the GCC.
Now, the GCC are all the Gulf oil-producing countries, right? So Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, all those places, they're considered the GCC. Okay.
That's the sound of an American oil company.
Let's let this pass.
All right. So the game plan is this. You have to destroy the GCC. Why? Because the GCC is the linchpin of the American empire. So what the GCC does is this. It sells oil, and then for US dollars. Where does it put US dollars? It puts US dollars into the American stock market. All right, so this is investments of the UAE, okay, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait into the US financial markets. As you can see, from 2012 up to today, it's been exploding. All right, because the US financial market is one of the safest places where you can put your money. The intention is this. The intention is, hey, if I cut off oil, and these countries no longer have access to US dollars, they're forced to spend whatever resources they have on protecting themselves, okay? And then guess what happens? The stock market collapses. The stock market collapses. The stock market is the real growth engine of the US economy. The entire US economy collapses with it. All right? There are about maybe 7 companies in America that accounts for about a quarter of stock market growth, okay? These 7 companies, of course, are all AI companies. NVIDIA.
Microsoft, Google.
Apple, okay? These are the companies, and then these companies are heavily invested in by the GCC nations. So if these nations are no longer able to invest in the stock market, these companies will collapse in value.
Yeah, and like we've been warning you, all right? The mark of the beast is on the way, man. Isaiah 30:12, this is in the NLT. It says, this is the reply of the Holy One of Israel. Because you despise what I tell you, and trust instead in oppression and lies. Calamity will come upon you suddenly, like a bulging wall that bursts and falls. In an instant, it will collapse and come crashing down. All right? We're waiting on it. Zephaniah 1:10, It says, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, that there should be a noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and great crashing from the hills. All right. This economy is about to crash, man. Okay. All the writing is on the wall. How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. All right. And I want to just go back into the chat GPT here. Okay. And what I did is I took from the description down here and compared it to Zephaniah 1 and 10 as we just read, right? And this is what we got. So it says, your point touches a real geopolitical economic chain reaction that analysts worry about. All right, that's what? Ecclesiastes 12. The keepers of the house shall tremble. Okay, these people who watch over the economy, all right, these analysts or whatnot, they see that the crash is coming, man. Okay, and they've been warning about it. These CEOs of these banks, okay, they all been talking about the great crash, the big one. Okay, it says your point touches a real geopolitical economic chain reaction that analysts worry about. Energy shocks, capital flight, market instability. When you place that next to book of Zephaniah 1 and 10 and 11, the parallels become striking. See? It says, number one, the modern economic system you're describing. Since the 1970s, the U.S. built a system often called the Petrodollar arrangement. Basic structure, number one, Gulf oil states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar sell oil in U.S. dollars. They accumulate massive dollar reserves. Number three, the petrodollars are recycled into U.S. Treasury bonds, American stocks, real estate, sovereign wealth funds, and wealth fund investments. In return, the U.S. provides military protection. The U.S. Navy protects Gulf shipping lanes. American bases defend Gulf monarchies. This created a symbiotic relationship between U.S. financial markets, Gulf oil wealth. Number two, why Iran is a threat to that system. Iran sits next to the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil checkpoint, as I did the lesson the other day on this, all right? Around 20% of global oil trade passes through it. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil per day flow through the corridor. If Iran blocks it, immediate effects. Oil exports from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Iraq disrupted. Global oil supply shock. Energy prices spike. Inflation surges. Markets panic. All right. So as we see now, all over the states, gas prices are rising. All right. It says recent reports already show oil prices surging above $100 amid disruption fears. Number three, how this could trigger a U.S. market crash. The mechanism would unfold in 4 steps. Step one, oil shock. Closing Hormuz removes a huge share of global oil supply. Result, oil prices explode, transportation costs rise, inflation surges worldwide. Analysts warn this could destabilize the global economy. Step two, Gulf states feel vulnerable. It says if U.S. bases are attacked, shipping lanes aren't secure, the U.S. can't guarantee protection. The Gulf monarchies start asking, why keep trillions invested in U.S. markets? This may redirect wealth to Asia, sovereign gold reserves, domestic military buildup. Step three, petrodollar recycling weakens. If Gulf funds reduce investments in U.S. Treasury bonds, Wall Street assets, the U.S. loses a major external buyer of its debt. Consequences: higher interest rates, stock market sell-offs, dollar pressure. Step four, financial panic. Once markets see energy crisis, war in the Gulf, foreign capital leaving U.S. assets, you could get a rapidly equity sell-off. Number 4, connecting this to Zephaniah 1:10-11. The prophecy describes economic collapse spreading through a nation. Verse breakdown, a cry from the fish gate. The fish gate in Jerusalem was a major commercial entry point. Modern parallel, ports, shipping routes, global trade arteries. If Hormuz closes, a major trade artery of the modern world collapses, right? A great crashing from the hills. This suggests sudden systematic destruction. In modern terms, market crash, financial shock, economic collapse. How you inhabitants of Maktesh. Maktesh was Jerusalem's merchant district. Equivalent today, Wall Street, global financial centers, stock exchanges. All the merchant people are cut down. Merchants equal traders, financiers, investors. If global capital flees markets, that's exactly what happens. All they that bear silver are cut off. Silver represented money, wealth, and savings, meaning even those holding wealth cannot escape the judgment. Compare similar language to the book of Ezekiel 7:19. They shall cast their silver in the streets. Money fails during judgment. Okay? So it's going down, man. Let's see what else we got before we go back to the video. Number 5, the pattern the Bible shows. Scripture repeatedly shows economic systems collapsing before major judgment. Okay? Revelation 18, James 5, right? Wealth corrupted in the last days. Ezekiel 27, global trade collapse of Tyre. These passages focus heavily on merchants, trade, and silver. Number 6, why the Hormuz crisis fits the pattern. A Gulf War threatens the 3 pillars of the modern financial system. Number 1, energy supply. Number 2, dollar dominance. Number 3, foreign capital inflows. Remove those and the system becomes unstable. That mirrors the language of Zephaniah's economic judgment. There you go, man. Okay. And we'll read this last part here. The summary. A war with Iran could theoretically trigger a market crash by blocking the Strait of Hormuz, energy shock, destabilizing Gulf monarchies, weakening the petrodollar system, causing Gulf sovereign funds to withdraw U.S. investments. Zephaniah chapter 1:10-11 describes a similar pattern where commerce collapses, merchants cry out, and wealth loses its power. Whew, man. And we're watching it, man. We're watching this happen. You see that? So let's go back to the video here. Okay?
And with that, that would lead to economic depression in America. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that is the situation for today.
Whoa. So that's the situation. So we're doing that. That's happening. Iran has hit all the military bases that the United States has in all those GCC countries, destroyed most of them, flattened them. And they put all their defenses around Israel. We've talked about that in other videos and other shows, that the Saudi Arabia and the GCC states or countries feel abandoned by the United States, and it's obvious that the United States is only protecting Israel and not protecting them. They thought they would be protected by the United States in case of an attack. They are not being protected. The United States can't protect them, turns out. And Iran can just bomb the hell out of our military bases, which they've done, and flatten them. They're wiping us out. We're not going to have a presence anymore in the Gulf. No kidding after this. And so what he's saying is that those Gulf states now feel abandoned. They now being attacked. The United States is not stepping up. They cannot, the Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz, so they can't export oil anymore. And so they're not going to, so their ideas of, they thought they were in a symbiotic relationship with the United States. We sell oil in US dollars. and then you protect us militarily. Well, that has just been proven that that is not the case. The United States is not protecting them militarily. No way. And so they can't sell their oil right now. And so what is the point of them keeping investing in the United States? So they'll stop. That's what he's saying. And is it true? Well, here it is. Warning, end of the empire. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Qatar are discussing withdrawing from contracts in the United States and canceling future investment commitments in the United States. Trump has ended American dominance in the region. It's over. We'll be right back with more of this story after a brief message from our sponsor.
I tried every.
Yeah, it's over, man. All right. Bear with me. Let's jump up a little bit.
Or what? So this is Adam tweeted this out. So here's part of that news article. I'll read it to you. It says the official said 3 of the 4 big Gulf economies, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Qatar, had jointly discussed the strains being put on their budget and economies, but they declined to name the states. A number of Gulf countries have begun an internal review to determine whether force majeure clauses can be invoked in current contracts, while also reviewing current and future investment commitments in order to alleviate some of the anticipated economic strain.
Hold on one second. Let me let this catch up a little bit. All right.
From the current war, especially if the war and related expenses continue at the same pace. They added that the move was a precautionary measure that was the result of the budget strains these countries are facing due to reduced income from energy, due to the slowdown in output or the inability to ship, and from the tourism and aviation sectors, in addition to the increase in defense spending. So they don't have the money to keep putting in the United States stock market anyway. That's what this is saying. And this is all created because Donald Trump decided to attack Iran, and then Iran took out all the military bases and all those countries. An advisor to Gulf government said the prospect of an investment review by the wealthy states had caught the White House attention. They manage some of the world's largest and most active sovereign wealth funds, and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar's last year pledged to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the United States after President Trump visited the region. They are also big backers of sporting events around the world, and all have been invested heavily domestically to develop their nations and diversify their economies. Any move that affects investments in the U.S. or other Western states may raise the pressure on Trump to seek a diplomatic strategy to bring the war to an end. The oil-rich Gulf states have been dragged into the conflict that the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran, with Tehran unleashing a ferocious response against Washington's regional allies. The war has caused shipping traffic to slow to halt through the Strait of Hormuz, the crucial waterway through which a fifth of the world's oil and gas passes, with at least 10 tankers being stuck in the Gulf. So this is how very likely, or let's say likely, again, I'm not an economist. I'm not a stock market guy. I'm showing you that Professor Duang, who is an expert at this, and I'm showing you what the newspapers are saying.
Exactly. Hey, I'm not a financial guru myself, but hey, we see the writing on the wall, like I said, man. All right. Proverbs 23 and verse 5. All right. Man, this is in the NLT. Proverbs 23 and 5. In the blink of an eye, wealth disappears, for it will sprout wings and fly away like an eagle. All right. The bag is about to disappear, man. All right. We've been telling you for years that the paper dollar was over, man. All right. Remember, the devil is pressed for time. They got to implement the M0TB, the mark of the beast, man. All right. So any given day now. Okay.
And I'm showing you what the Gulf states are saying. So it seems like what that professor was saying and what the Gulf states are saying match up. And it looks like look for a big downturn in the stock market because they're going to stop putting their money in it. And that's been propping up our stock market. So it's likely, big possibility our stock market could crash and our economy could crash faster than you think.
There you go. What more can we say? Right? Let's play this. All right, I saw this up here. This is from the Young Turks. Let's see what they got to say on that. All right, yeah, that's pretty much the majority of that video. All right, let's check this out real quick.
You haven't listened?
Let that pass. All right, yeah, oil prices surge as Iran war stokes deeper global economy. Right? All the news is out here, man.
Money we borrow to pay for the war just adds to our debt problem because now we have more debt that we can't repay. But it's also possible that the dollar blows up here, that the world does not want to finance this war. The world was already moving away from the dollar before the war started. They were de-dollarizing.
Economist Peter Schiff warns that the war on Iran could actually further weaken the US dollar and even.
Hold on one second. All right. Let that catch up too. All right. Let's see if we can do this. I was already at 720. All right. Let's see.
And even drag the United States even deeper into debt, something I've been raising concern about on this show. And in fact, his concerns are warranted, to say the least. So let's get into it. So two important disclaimers that I want to get out of the way right off the bat, because this is so important. Peter Schiff does have a conflict of interest here. You should know about it. So for instance, he's a big advocate of investing in gold. In fact, he does have a financial interest in getting listeners to invest accordingly. So keep that in mind. Number two, the dollar has actually rallied since we started this war on Iran. According to CNBC, the dollar is still seen as a safe haven asset. So even though the dollar had been weakened in recent months, especially in the last several months. The war in Iran ended up spooking the investors who took money out of riskier investments and instead decided to park their funds in the US dollar. Okay, so that's what happened after the war started. However, the dollar's rally has slowed down a little bit today. Now, with that out of the way, the war in Iran could open up a whole new can of worms when it comes to inflation. And we should be very worried about that. First, let's go to Schiff's argument, and then I'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Price hikes. Okay. Panic. Okay. Things getting even more expensive. Right? I quoted, let me just read it. All right. Everybody spooked. Investors, financial managers. All right. People who handle, Wall Street, stock market. All right. They see it, man. Okay. This is Ecclesiastes 12:3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. All right. That's them. All right. The financial gurus, the economists, investors. Right. They know that this thing is going to crash. And the strong men shall bow themselves. The grinders cease because they are few. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. And the doors should be shut in the streets when the sound of grinding is low. All right. And people are already out of work. They're in debt. Okay. They can't find jobs. All right. You got a lot of these, businesses that are being closed down. A lot of these franchises have went bankrupt. Okay. It's over, man. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and the daughters of music shall be brought low.
the economy, will it be able to sustain such a war with the increase in energy prices? Will it won't impact the US as much as it will impact Europe and Asia?
Well, as long as we can keep going into debt and, we can sustain it, as long as we can keep borrowing money. But the problem is, if the Fed has to print all the money and we have a lot of inflation, can we sustain that? Foreign central banks are moving away from the dollar. Now, it's possible that this war slows down the exodus from the dollar, but it's also possible it speeds it up. And if it speeds it up, then we're even less able to continue the war. If it slows it down, that buys us some time. But it's going to mean higher oil prices. That's a certainty. How much higher, it's hard to say. They could end up being a lot higher. And obviously that's problematic.
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's insane.
Let this pass. We'll play a little bit more. We'll wrap it up.
That sure is problematic, Peter. Definitely problematic. And I have no doubt that what we pay at the pump, we've already seen it increase since the war began. And I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. And remember, when it comes to energy, when it comes to oil, when it comes to gas, we're not just talking about what you pay at the pump. We're also talking about the cost of transporting goods and services. And so that is going to lead to inflation. So speaking of high oil prices, on Monday, an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia was damaged by 2 Iranian drones. Not good. Those drones were intercepted, but shrapnel from the drones caused a fire in the refinery. So that forced the refinery to pause operations.
Yeah, so you can watch the rest of that. All right, the point is made, man. The chip is on the way. All right. Hey, let me get this. All right, the vision, right? No longer tarries. This is Habakkuk chapter 2. Okay. All right, Habakkuk 2:2. And the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. All right? And that's it. All right? The M0TB is on deck. Shalom.